Your angels are speaking to you. Do you hear them? Welcome to The Calling of Light with author and empathic spiritual tarot reader Anne-Marie Odell. The Calling of Light offers direct, empathic insight and relatable spiritual topics, interviews with special spiritual guests, and straight talk call-in readings. Kick back and enjoy free-form spirit tea with Anne-Marie, the way you like it best when you want to simplify. Here is your host, Anne-Marie Odell.
Hi, my name is Anne-Marie, and you are listening to The Calling of Light on OMTimes Radio, Gardens of the Sisterhood. Who are the Gardens of the Sisterhood, and why do they even matter? Well, I believe that sisterhood is very valuable. We are in a lonely society where a lot of people do not have people that they can bond or connect with. So gardens in themselves are very healing and connecting with like-minded people. Mostly I have with women, but I'm sure there are many, many male groups out there too that have a common connection with gardening, creating wonderful landscapes, fairy gardens, cannabis gardens, and most of all, if you are a metaphysical person or a spiritualist, as I am, you may also find that incorporating tarot, divination tools to help read the energy of the land that you are trying to garden is going to give you a leg up on not having dead plants, on why certain kinds of energy seem to clash with what you're doing. It is my belief that land holds energy, historical energy from the thousands and thousands of years that it may have had Native Americans, Vikings, people that have experienced traumas and childbirth and marriages. It's all in the ground. And so when you build a house, make sure that you have a good reader. Just kind of do a channeling on the land that you want to be able to garden or to create your house. I don't think hauntings happen necessarily because of the house in itself. I believe houses are placed on negative land. So you want to make sure, which no large-scale housing development is certainly going to do. So whether you believe in it or not, it's just kind of an interesting way to be able to channel your energy in the land, shake hands with it, and get to know it. And if it doesn't want a house on it, or it doesn't want an herb garden or any kind of garden in it, why mess with the historical land energy? So today, I'm going to give you a little bit of history on me. My name is Anne-Marie. I'm a master tarot reader for over 40 years, and I began my gardening quest back in my free-spirited days when friends passed on their legacy through plant cuttings. Most of my friends had huge jungles of houseplants, which is coming back into style right now. More and more of the younger generation is being tuned into the joy of having thriving, healthy houseplants. And for me, in the days of my 22, 23 years old, you passed on a houseplant, whether you rooted it or whether they root it, and it's placed in the pot. And it's kind of like a keeper of the soul. That plant is your care now, your responsibility to keep the legacy of that friendship going. This moved on when I began to be in my vegetable gardening stage. I went into an organic organization. We planted vegetables. We purchased earthworms and praying mantis in the mail. We let them go into the ground. Whether they stayed or not was up to them. It was a wonderful chapter in my life. It was an Amish colony. I learned that when a cucumber is as big as a football, it is not a good cucumber. Cucumbers are best when they're small. Otherwise, the Amish women would laugh and call me, they wouldn't call me anything. They'd just say, that's got to be the most woody, pithy cucumber in the world. So I learned the word pithy. From that stage of organic gardening and many nails in the feet from barefoot gardening and tetanus shots, I became a working mom. At that point, I wanted to pass on the legacy of gardening to my son. Here in Iowa, we are blessed to have black, fertile soil, and most of the time, rain. So I'm a single mom in my 20s, teaching him how to garden, but we're doing it through very simple things that allow me to do the full responsibility of being a mom, especially a working mom, and still have beautiful flowers. So it started with daisies and heavenly blue morning glories. Heavenly blue morning glories climbed everywhere around our house and around the little white picket fences I constructed. The real journey of the gardens of the Sisterhood began for me when I was in my 30s and 40s and started to tune in to what other women were doing, other men were doing in their gardens. It began to be a sense of pride. We wanted to share. We wanted to be able to share gardening tips, and we wanted to be able to do all those wonderful things that could give us our own legacy in a different way, a legacy that would allow us to tour each other's gardens, show off a little bit. And also, I learned so much through my different gardening friends. For instance, there are shade gardens. You are going to find that there are less bright, colorful flowers, but oh, the texture of beautiful hostas and foxglove and astilbe and wonderful plants that will grow for you in the peaceful joy of shade gardening. However, you may find yourself just a little bit embarrassed when the garden tours come and you realize everybody's gardens are way more colorful than yours. They've got vegetables, they've got flowers that are bursting with color. And at that point, you have to say, you know what? You work with what you have. I love trees. There is no way I'm going to cut down an old soul so I can plant colorful flowers. How selfish is that? So I didn't do that. At that point, I also took pride in myself, took pride in what I have. It became a spiritual journey. This was the same time that I left my conservative job and became a full-time psychic reader, intuitive reader, spiritual reader, however you want to say it. Strangely, things began to happen for me I began to see that more land was opening up to me. I began to see how art and the garden could combine. I began to understand feng shui concepts and the importance of having directional gardening energy. I began to see also how interesting that things open up when you allow your angels and guides to just bring it to you, when you stop trying to control the show. And that's when I wrote The Gardens of the Sisterhood. And that's when I found a 5-foot, 350-pound angel brought in on a boom truck. The house across my lane opened up for $9,000. And I purchased it on a 401k. And I began my journey with divination gardening, tarot gardening, laying out cards, meeting the energy of the land. I began to realize as a full-time reader the importance of blending into the community and not hanging flying eyeballs or things that would announce what I do in a way that the Lutheran or the Catholic or church would object to. And that allowed the beauty of my gardens, the peaceful feng shui energy to just speak for itself. I discovered the power of a wonderful entrance to my studio. How important it was not only to understand the energy of my garden, but to really take interest in what is a witch garden? What are the magical properties of a witch garden? What is a Native American wheel garden? What is the Viking garden, the Druid garden? So today we're going to discuss those things. And we are also going to discuss the maiden, the mother, and the crone, and how important it is to realize that as you get older, the weed eater is your friend. Remember, earthworms love you whether you have bare black dirt or shaved grass with your weed eater. It's just your friends and you that have to accept that it's okay to have clean lines, but fill in the black dirt areas you once had by just shaved pretty green moss or grass. All right. The first thing I want to tell you when you are a gardener is your hat is your best friend. Why? Because when you're young and you're wearing tube tops and you're wearing short shorts in the garden, that's cool. But later on in life, if you don't take care of your skin and you garden, you're going to get brown spots. And brown spots are caused from being in the sun, a sun that is much different than when I was young, because now there's less and less of that ozone to protect the rays from us. So it's really, really important that you get yourself a hat when you garden. We're going to discuss what is your garden structure ID. Now, there are several ways that structures are in a garden or even in our house can subtly define how we think. For instance, if you think in right angles and everywhere you go, you have to put things on the table or things in your desk or things in the garden, even your structure is in right angles, you are the strategist. These are people that think in squares. So if you find that everywhere you go, you're placing everything in right angles, you are a leader. And you need to mark your identity the same way a dog pisses on a bush Every time you set something in a right angle, I know what a thing to think or compare. Let's put you in charge of an art display or a flea market, and you will quickly convert displays into squares. Squares are historically the center of communities and cities. So when you have your garden in neat, compact squares, you are somebody that's going to have your specific little vegetables or flowers or whatever in a nice, orderly fashion. A bench in just the right location will make your day. Artwork, sculpture, or water features can be magnets for visitors and your morning walks with coffee. So think of social interaction or your tribal sisterhood gathering, because your square, uh, you know, square garden is going to not only be that leadership art display, flea market, type display, but when you have a gathering at your place, it will seem to always gravitate for you towards squares. Types of square gardens may be a traditional vegetable garden, a Japanese moss garden, city squares, a rose garden, raised bed gardening, or square foot gardening. On the other hand, if you are somebody that loves to garden in, let's say, circles, now you're somebody that is more of a free spirit. For you, being shut up into lines can be very confining. And so your garden may be in, you may notice a flow of circles or square, or not squares. You could also have both. You could have squares or circles. But most likely, if you're a circular pattern type gardener, you are a free spirit and you heed the call of nature. Mystical healing gardens designed with intriguing circular paths embrace the spiral and DNA code of Mother Earth. Circles are connected to the movement of the heart and womb of the natural world. In a sort of stem cell reboot, circles and spirals energetically amplify and enhance the healing process. So when you design your garden in circles, you may be somebody that likes to meditate a lot, needs to have healing walks with coffee. Circles create that sense of flow and calmness. They bring focus to sculpture, an ornamental tree, or a garden mirror. A perfect shape, a spiral, triggers powerful healing emotionally and physically and clears the mind. For instance, a teepee makes an amazing circular garden focus for climbing vines. An herb spiral makes a standout circular garden. Or placing a bench in the center of a circular garden becomes an interesting and inviting place to sit. Some types of circular gardens are Native American medicine wheel, the circular labyrinth, and circular herb gardens that are usually associated with magic and healing herbs. So, which gardener are you? You will find that you usually have a specific kind of structure for your paths in your gardens wherever you go. And the best way to find that out is in the winter when you can see the bones of your garden. And you will notice right away whether you're a circular gardener or a square gardener. Another thing that I believe is kind of interesting, flower garden colors. Now, blue is the color of the throat chakra and has a very soothing effect on the nervous system. So choose neutral and soft blue colors for your flowers for a very relaxing sitting space to slow down your heart rate. If you are a blue personality, you probably exemplify loyalty, trust, diplomacy, and calm. Wherever you go, these are the people that are usually drawn to the color blue. Now, how about green? This is the fourth chakra of love and self-love and relaxes stressful thoughts and muscles and reminds us of the importance of giving and taking unconditionally. Mystical healing gardens with mass plantings of abundant green ferns and hosta offer a very rich tapestry of shape, texture, and a serene haven from the sun. And people who love green have the personality traits of understanding, self-control, adaptability, sympathy, compassion, generosity, humbleness, and are usually nature-loving and romantic. Choose pink flowers when you are looking for a mystical healing garden of peace, because pink will smooth agitated thoughts, especially concerning romantic and family relationship worries. So if you are really stressing about family or things in your life, have a nice sitting circle surrounded by pink flowers. Add pink to your mystical healing garden to add innocence and warmth. And those with a soul connection with pink are generally gentle, casual, and very approachable people. What about white? The seventh crown chakra, which symbolizes oneness in the universe and brings images of the ascended masters. The activated crown chakra can appear like a halo. In the mystical healing garden, the color white can create the essence of enlightenment, like the light from a lantern, bouncing here and there on the pathway ahead. White symbolizes clarity and freshness, and in times of stress, it is the right color to gain clarity in your thoughts. So choose white if you are maybe in a spiritual circle, grouping that comes regularly. You want it to be in that square tribal shape, but with plenty of circular winding pathways for free-spirited healing. Now, violet is the sixth chakra of the third eye, and violet signifies strength, peace, and wisdom, and gives balance to your garden. It's said to increase bone growth. The color violet brings a balance of potassium and sodium within your body. And if meditation is your intent, the power of inner focus can be 10 times greater under a violet light. In your space, in your garden, to add clarity and enhance psychic ability, add lots of violet flowers in different shades. You don't have to be a vivid purple person. Violet and purple come in many different sweet.
OMTimes TV.
Hi, my name is Anne-Marie Odell, and thank you for inviting me in for tarot and coffee. I offer 37 plus years of accurate, honest tarot channeling. Spirit comes through me as a feeling, an inner knowing. I call it the angel frequency. As you say your first name, I close my eyes and shuffle my well-worn card as I go into a deep calm. By phone, Skype, or Zoom, contact me at thecallingoflight.com.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. OMTimes Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, OMTimes offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an OMTimes magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on OMTimes TV and broadcasting it across the extensive OMTimes radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. OMTimes. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back, and this is part 2 of the Gardens of the Sisterhood, creating a mystical healing garden. This is the second book in a series of 2 that I wrote. The first book I wrote, where I just took pictures of all of my garden sisters and their most beautiful garden spots. Most of all, it was just a very innocent and, I think, nostalgic, almost, I would say, very hippie type energy in creating my first book. And that book has a picture of my garden angel, and she was brought in on a boom truck and landed in my flower garden in the front of my studio. This would have been the same year that I opened my studio in 2001. After that, things began to happen. The pandemic, legalization of cannabis, using cannabis in the herbal garden. But more than that, I began to meet some very interesting people. And I wanted to be able to include some of their garden principles into my second book, Gardens of the Sisterhood, Create a Mystical Healing Garden. In this book, I go into how to place statuary, how the principles of feng shui make a junky yard look amazing and clear, how to, with a cold heart, take out all of those cheap things that you loved at one time, but after a while began to weigh you down and really made your yard look like crap. So with the second book, I also got into the witch's garden, the druid's garden, the mystical Madonna garden, and these are the things I would like to discuss in this part of Gardens of the sisterhood. Maybe the first thing that I need to discuss, curiouser and curiouser, is the theme of the whimsical garden. Think of Alice in Wonderland, reflective mirrors that kind of reflect back portals in your garden. Think of fairy tales and the magical wonder of a child. And think of any time in your own childhood when you saw an especially intriguing garden and just wanted to explore it. The nucleus of a whimsical garden is a single color that winds like a silk thread through contained chaos, giving stability and balance to all. Whimsy is fun, it's lighthearted, and folk art based. It can be a ceramic pot turned on its side with flowers spilling out like milk. It can be statuary. It can be little nooks and crannies and mirrors that reflect back to make you feel as if you are small and a small child again. A beautiful childhood is full of wonder and playfulness, and with room to spend hours in imagination, but be very cautious of overwhelming the six senses in the whimsical garden. Too much visibility creates invisibility. Just like collecting too many cool things and putting them in your yard, pretty soon nothing stands out. There needs to be a sense of exploration and suspense in the whimsical garden. What lies around the corner to be discovered? Balance in a whimsical garden is filled with unexpected surprises. I'll give you an example. One of my mentors, and she is in her 90s now, had so much inner child, and she had pathways that led to a composer's, what is that called, podium. And she would actually take a baton and in fun direct the birds, direct the flowers, direct everything around her in a very playful way. And we would all laugh and know that that's just her. And it was her way of having inner child in the whimsical garden. You want to create hiding spots to view the garden unseen by others. Place a mirror in an unexpected cool nook, safely wired against a trellis, of course, protected from storms. Alice in Wonderland began her journey by seeing the world in reverse through the looking glass. So place a whimsical table and two chairs painted bright colors to share a conversation or a cup of coffee or tea with a friend at the end of a path. Hang prisms in the bushes or tiny mirrors from the twisted limbs of a Harry Lauder's walking stick. That's a really awesome twisted kind of bush. So maintaining balance in the whimsical garden is, again, have occasional surprises. Don't overwhelm, but make sure that you think like a child with a beautiful thread of one color winding all the way through it to give that balance and harmony. What about the Madonna of the Rose Garden, the spiritual garden of the mystical Madonna? The spiritual symbolism of the rose. Since ancient times, roses have symbolized God's hand at work. They are the masterpiece of the Creator, intricate and elegant. Their fragrance is spicy, complex yet delicate. And rosebuds open layer by layer and represent the wisdom and spiritual path in people's lives. To many women, the Madonna is the ultimate mystical garden, a leader of the sacred path and goddess of the sisterhood. One of the things you may want to consider are the colors of the roses, because each has its own meaning. For instance, red is the lover's rose. White shows humility and innocence. Yellow expresses sweet friendship. Pink offers gratitude, appreciation, and admiration. An orange rose represents enthusiasm and desire. Lilac and purple roses represent enchantment and love at first sight. When we get into the opposite of the Madonna garden, we may think about the witch's garden. My first encounter with a witch was a neighbor that practiced pagan rituals privately within her home. She didn't belong to any kind of ritual organization. I was really kind of taken aback and very curious because she was excited to share volumes of notebooks in which she collected ancient knowledge, rituals, garden and herbal cures. On a wood bench in front of my studio, she would share with great reverence the study of being a witch. She was brilliant, college and formal military school educated. My stereotype of witches and pagans flew out the window because this was a woman who clearly was no dummy. She was somebody that really thought things out. So throughout time, villagers would travel to the outskirts of town to find a local witch for an herbal cure from her apothecary garden. As a Sarah Moses of healing, these village wise women had great knowledge of the 5 essential elements and how to combine compatible herbs for their magical elixirs from their gardens filled with herbs, vegetables, twigs, roots, and vines. These are the 5 crucial culinary herbs in a witch's garden, as well as rosemary, basil, mint, sage, and lemon balm. The 5 elements of the magical healing garden are in nature as well as are earth, water, fire, air, and space. The witch chooses her intention, but as a natural herbalist, the cures in her basket are often from her apothecary garden or the woods. And there is a great knowledge of the 5 elements of healing. The 5 herbal elements in the body are earth, this would be the bones, flesh, skin, tissues, and hair. Water, which are saliva, urine, semen, blood, and sweat. Fire is hunger, thirst, and sleep. Air is body movement, expansion, contraction, and suppression. And spirit, the 7th crown chakra, is a record of all knowledge pertaining to the material planes and astral world. So the 5 herbal elements in the body are earth, water, fire, air, and spirit. If any element is impure or out of balance with another, disease and suffering may occur. I'm going to add something here because our world needs it. Long distance healing from the garden, a form of healing which I call the Reiki Rose. In this, you send love from the healing garden. times when you feel great concern for someone you love or care about, someone who has cancer, who you want to send healing to, or an area of the world where mass fire or an earthquake has ravaged the land. Sending the Reiki Rose to a specific person or place in a ball of pure, illuminating light aids healing and transition. So placing your hands above your own body, you empower the energy with the pure intention of sending out healing. Here are the steps for sending Reiki Rose healing. In bed, before you fall asleep, or in a quiet, uninterrupted place, quiet your mind and take a deep breath. Envision your own body as a conduit of energy. At the same time, envision the person, the pet, or the place you want to send healing and say their name. You may want to rub your hands together at this point, slowly bringing them together. The pulsing energy field that you feel between them means you are ready. Place your hands above your body and send the healing energy through you to the source. Can you feel the electrical energy going out into the universe? Send it as a rose or ball of light to the loved one you wish to heal. Do this 5 minutes, maybe longer if you want, but it is the intention, not the length of time, that you are sending out to your source. Don't be upset if you fall asleep. In the deep state of making a connection, the Reiki Rose has been sent to heal. But please remember that sending healing energy to those in hospice should be in the intention of helping them relax for a peaceful, loving transition. I've always had a fascination for Vikings. I'd like to discuss the philosophical hypotheses and science behind the Druid's garden, of the mystical healing garden. Druids were a combination of community advisor, teacher, philosopher, scientist, and judge. And though not priests, they were the diplomatic connection between man and the gods. They preferred oral teaching over writing, so there's very little known about them other than what is passed down from one man to another through history. Scholars of the natural world considered trees as sacred and saw the world based around 3 elements. The 3 Druid elements are Nuivra, which represents the energy of the garden, its life force, and consciousness associated with the sky and heavens. In the garden, it is the spiritual energy of the plant and the unseen spaces between all living things. The second Druid element is Guyar, and it represents the flow, movement, and change of living things seen and unseen. The conversion of light into energy would be an example of how, through the process of photosynthesis, plants eat sunlight and carbon dioxide to produce their food. The blood in our veins that flows to our organs, allowing energy and health, would be the element of Guyar. The orchestration of flow and movement in the process of decay, whereby the earth, fertilized, stimulates the production of microbes in a complete circle. The third druid element is Kalas, and it is the finished product. Healing properties of what happens when the energy and light flow and movement create the finished product. For instance, the carrot on our plate. Whatever is the conclusion as a result of the first and second property. Contemporary Druid philosophy contains the basic elements of hypotheses for all life questions and spirit. It is the contemplation and strategy behind science and theory. Last but not least, there are so many people who are taking CBD oil now for their muscle pains, relaxation, and even those who use it recreationally or for anxiety. There seems to be a place in the modern day garden to companion plant cannabis with your herbs. Cannabis in the healing garden has been used for centuries and as companions for garden vegetables. With the legalization of cannabis comes the ability to bring relief from pain, anxiety, and insomnia. And for terminal illness, it eliminates much of the need for pharmaceutical opiates. With the legalization of the beautiful light green herb, it can be planted in a raised bed among the vegetables and be as easy to reach for as basil for a seasoning herb for cooking. In much the same way winemakers grow grapes on archways, cannabis in the healing garden will be accessible for texture, color, and healing for common human conditions. Did you know that the human body has a natural endocannabinoid system called ECS, which in our biological system is composed of lipid-based neurotransmitters? And throughout the vertebrae central nervous system, including the brain, our natural ECS is involved in the cognitive process of fertility, pregnancy, and during pre- and postnatal development. Our natural cannabinoid transmitter proteins influence our appetite, pain sensation, mood, and memory, as well as meditation. Maybe this is why our ancestors, Native Americans, and indigenous tribes have long embraced cannabis for healing and spiritual enhancement. I hope that this will encourage you to check out my book, Gardens of the Sisterhood, Create a Mystical Healing Garden, which you can find on Amazon by Ann Odell. There are 2 books. The second one is probably the most informative. I hope that you will check it out. I'm Anne Marie, and you are listening to OMTimes Radio with the Calling of Light.